Hello, hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Still feels fresh to me. I'm here with Susie Streelman. Susie and I got the opportunity to meet when I spoke at a Sober in the City event from Zero Proof Experiences last 2022, so 2 years ago now. Having her back on the podcast, I'm so excited to share more about what Susie's up to and her story. How are you today?
Great, Carolina. It's nice to be here. And yeah, I can't believe that it's been almost 2 years ago. So we just kind of celebrated that experience that it's been 2 years since kind of starting through. Yeah,
Yeah,
great to be here.
yeah. And I love to just the most generic question at first so that the listeners just have a full understanding of who you are and what you do and stuff like that. So you can tell us a little bit about Zero Proof Experiences and the kind of events you host and what you're up to. And we'll go deeper into it as we go into the interview, but just want to give a good introduction.
Oh, okay, awesome. So yes, I'm Susie, and I started really Zero Proof Experiences just about 2 years ago when we hosted our first Sober in the City dinner. It was kind of a grassroots dinner. We had, I think, 40 or 45 women come up from actually a few fly in. And I remember that we were just going to have a dinner, and I was talking to one of my friends about it, and she's like, maybe if you had somebody speak, it might just tie things up in a little bow. And I thought there was probably no way that Carolina would even respond to my email, but she said yes. And so that was really the beginning of such a positive experience. So since then, we have been hosting Sober in the City events. And we're actually adding in some very casual meetups this year as well. So around the country. And so we've been to Sacramento, we've been to Austin, we've been to Portland, Maine. We're excited to be in Tampa, Florida, maybe around the time this podcast comes out, even. And why did we do that? Right? Can I answer that
Yeah.
a little bit? Because for me, when I decided to give up alcohol, I was an expert breaker. And at one point, I just took that longer break, decided I liked it more than drinking. What was harder for me than giving up alcohol personally was the social aspect, because I love going out to dinner. I love enjoying my family and friends socially. And for me and a lot of other people I've heard, that can be pretty awkward. So, we thought, well, let's create something. We don't expect this every night where you walk in and that's like off the table. Maybe you can just like let the exhale go and relax, and everything is kind of set up for you at that point. Alcohol-free beverages. Now, I will say that now that we're here in 2024, it's been 2 years since we started. I cannot believe the change. And you've been at this a little longer than I have, Carolina. So it must really seem huge to you as well. But I think that's changing a lot. Like that social pressure it's different now. I know it's still out there, but it is different. Would you agree?
I mean, I think just movement is growing, you know what I mean? And like the popularity, even if someone hasn't like ditched alcohol for good, like the popularity of things like dry January or just the idea that alcohol is not as good for us, I think is becoming way more prolific. Yeah. And I love what you're doing because I'm so obsessed, I think, with this movement because we all have like a place to play. I think we all have a role to fill. And for example, like being able to host events and socializing, and you have a conference. I went to that second event the next year in Palm Springs, which was like Sober in the City on steroids because you did a whole 3-day weekend, which is so incredible. But there's just so much going on there. Like we all have that role to play, whereas there's just different contributions we can all make to this movement. And I love how you are really dominating, I think, in the event space, and not only in the Southern California region where you're from, but like traveling all over the world, which is so cool. I remember when I first got started, me and my friend hosted a few events in San Diego, and it was really fun. And I loved the connection, but some of the like logistics and all that stuff, I was like, you know what? I don't know if this is for me. Like, I really love coaching. And obviously, I'll do retreats or obviously retreats in like a certification program. I love that kind of stuff. But I think it's so important that what you're doing is out there because it is, especially in those first few months, or, when you're just kind of getting into this space, like the socializing changes a lot. And you're also so hungry for other women with that connection. You know what I mean? And that's what I saw is so huge at your events is the women are so hungry to not only meet each other, get to know each other, but then their connections last so much longer after that. So much more has spurred after that. Would you say that you've noticed that as well, that you're really building like a thick community?
For sure, for sure. One thing that is also interesting too is that like when we first started, I thought it was going to be like sober curious Sally on the street that might want to like come say, hey, what's going on. We do get some of that, some people that are brand new, and we also attract a lot of leaders. So there's a lot of networking, a lot of people having one another on each other's podcasts. And so look, look, here we are now too, because we met at Sober in the City 2 years ago. And I know that a lot of that will be happening after Tampa. So I see that people have connected, and actually a couple of people, Terry Patterson and Sarah Showard, have started the Sober Edge book club together. And a lot of podcast hosting. There's going to be authors and so on. But yeah, thank you for kind of mentioning that the transition from one dinner to like a whole weekend of events. Because you're right, it does take a bit of coordination and planning. And one thing that I think is exciting for us, and probably both of us, that one of big silver lining is the people that we meet along the way. So you and I might be in a little bit of a different role, because that is one thing that my partner Peggy, who's our chief connections officer and author, we say, no, we're not coaching. We're, we're still out there. We want to have fun. We just drink differently, but definitely a lot of connections forming, and I'm feeling a lot of excitement
Yeah.
about 2024.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that tagline too. You could use it in part of your events. So I'm curious, Susie, let's go back a little bit. Like, how did you decide to get into the alcohol-free lifestyle? You said you were like a serial break taker before. So kind of what was the like introduction into it, and then what kind of made it stick for you? And then when did you decide also to be like not only someone who's just alcohol-free, but like, okay, now I want to play a big role here. I want to lead events and, create this movement.
Yeah, okay. So there's a few questions there. Let me see what I can do. Yes, I did. I took a lot of breaks, most of them pretty short. I think the first break I took, I was told by a doctor that I should take a break for a month. And I was like, what the heck? You got to be kidding me. Because my liver enzymes were a little high, nothing terrible. And so I did, and they went down, and then, I started drinking again. But I always kind of had that concern in the back of my mind, probably for just long-term health, I think, because I was very fitness oriented. And so I even took off a couple of Lent seasons, which is a pretty long time. I just believed at that time, Carolina, that it wasn't an option. Right? Like, why would you quit drinking unless you absolutely had to? Like maybe you were an alcoholic or something. So I did not think my life would be complete. I really just didn't see it as an option until somewhere around mid-COVID. I, again, wasn't planning to quit drinking. I just signed up for a longer break, started enjoying that lifestyle, the alcohol-free lifestyle, I believe we call it, more than the drinking wine lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think the reason that I felt called to make an offer, I guess you could say, was again because really for me it was a challenge. I know kind of when you look back at now on it now, it doesn't seem so hard. But for example, I remember talking to a beautiful gal, and she was just explaining to me some of the things that she does. Like she will bring her alcohol-free beverages to a restaurant. She always would offer to pay a corkage, for example. And I said, I could never. I could never do that. Um, so what is it? I guess the discomfort of not having a proper beverage overcame the discomfort of, asking to have that corked. It's something that I don't do all the time, but I do. It's actually, it's going to be my birthday. I'll probably take something nice when we go out later this week to celebrate. Personally, I always ask or offer again to pay the corkage. I've never been charged so far. Oftentimes I'll mention something like, well, looking forward to the day that you carry it in the restaurant. And it's coming, Carolina. It's coming. I believe that Southern California is one of those regions that has been a little bit slower on the uptake, which, I kind of found surprising at first. We're pretty health conscious and so on. Many other regions are quite a bit ahead of us, but, I think maybe kind of that beachy vacation vibe. But even despite all that, it is coming right now. There's two restaurants, for example, in Long Beach that have recently, just in the last few months, offered alcohol-free wine on the
Wow.
menu and served it nicely in a glass. So, yeah, that's exciting. Every,
Susie,
yeah, go ahead.
real quick, I've been, in this alcohol free, I'm going to be 6 years. And I literally, until talking to you today, I had never even thought of bringing an alcohol free wine to a restaurant and just asking them to, pay the corkage fee. Like, isn't that funny? Like, it just didn't cross my mind as an option. And you're right. Like, there really shouldn't be anything against it. Like, until you offer it at your own restaurant, what is there to say about it? So I think that's like permission to anyone to do that if they feel so called. And I do love that because I think we're seeing, the alcohol-free beers really kind of got in first, like in a lot of places that do carry beer will have something, hopefully, right? And then mocktails are also becoming more prolific. But yeah, it's I've never to this day seen in the United States a restaurant carry alcohol-free wine. So maybe I'm gonna have to go to Long Beach and check that out.
Awesome. Yeah, call me when you get here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to jump into the dry January thing, if you will allow, because every year I think I get a little bit excited about dry January. I know not everybody is a fan of dry January, but to me, I think it's almost like the Super Bowl of the alcohol-free arena is right now, this month. So every year I get a little bit excited and I get to Googling all the statistics and um, anyway, I made quite a list this year, Carolina, that I'd love to share just a few of them with you. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, because sometimes I found myself Googling and you actually end up with an article from like 2017 or whatever. Oh, let me share this too. I somehow got on the list for Nielsen IQ. You may be familiar, probably a lot of your audience are. They're one of the largest data analytic companies for many industries, including the beverage industry. They offered a call entitled The Four Sipping Trends for the Alcoholic Beverage Industry. And I got on that Zoom call because I thought one of those four trends was going to be non-alcoholic. Well, I wasn't quite right, but I got on the call and it took about 4.5 minutes before they mentioned the word non-alcoholic for the first time. Now, remember, this is a call about analytics from the alcoholic beverage industry. And throughout the whole rest of the call, Carolina, it was non-alcoholic this, alcohol-free that. Non-alcoholic beverages are driving the RTT ready to drink premium movement. So just one little thing with dry January, their most recent survey said that 33% reported some level of participation in dry January in 2023. This year, 44%,
Wow. And is
which,
that of the entire US population or how does that like statistic work?
yeah, they didn't actually specify, but it was all of whoever they surveyed,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
I believe,
Across, yeah.
yeah, it's global. So, but I think they have like 9 or 13 of their biggest markets, Australia, Europe, and a few others. And like, yeah, if you think about your friends, I was like, well, I don't know if they know my friends, but 44%, that's a higher number than I honestly expect. Although, maybe it's just they're going to participate for a brief amount of time. Whatever it is, don't you think that really raises the awareness?
Yeah, it is. And I do see it now too. Like I was just at my sister's son's birthday party, and a lot of the moms were participating in dry January, where that would have been, unheard of 5 years ago. Like, you would have been such an outlier back then. So I'm curious what other, facts and statistics you picked up about this year.
Yeah, okay. Well, that kind of brings up, where was that Gen Z one? Well, here's one of their takeaways, by the way. This is just a takeaway at the end of an alcoholic beverage call. The adult non-alcoholic product growth is exploding in 2024. That's what they told me is their takeaway.
I'm
Um,
curious, did you ever consider that as like an option to get involved in the alcohol-free industry? Or like, because I know like there's so many different roles to play, right? Like there's the coaching space, there's the transformation space, there's the like community space, there's the event space, there's the alcohol-free beverage space. Was there ever a time in your mind that you were considering maybe like getting into the drink space? Because you're very tied into that because you partner with a lot of drink companies, right?
yeah, I am. I think that we really like to partner with a lot of people, like you, for example, too. And we have a lot of coaches that step up. We have beverage companies we're working with. Dessoir is the correct way to say that. And Sierra Nevada is really, they're coming out with alcohol free. They've already had their hop weather out. Their hazy IPA, I believe, just came out this January too.
Yeah.
So, in speaking with them, so no, the answer is no. I never really considered that. Or, we're kind of full and enjoying the partnership, but it's so interesting to get to know them and like talk to people, for example, that work at Sierra Nevada Brewery, which everybody is familiar with, I think. They feel like it's part of the package that they need to provide. They're
Yeah.
involved in a lot of festivals and big events, and interesting that they feel like they need to provide that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the trends was that 49% of people are interested in an alcohol-free beverage when they're out. And if I don't have that right, it goes up even higher for ages 21 to 34, which goes to show something about, the younger generation is making different choices. And there might be other things involved with that too, but they're definitely not putting that high of a prioritization on alcohol. I believe that this number really shocked them. Um, it's a high number. I'm looking for it. But anyhow, the Gen Z, the ones that are age 11 to 26, whatever generation that is. So they haven't all aged to 21 yet. But those that are of drinking age, it's like 45% that have not consumed alcohol at all. So they reported that information, and it was a pretty organized call, and like it was kind of jaw-dropping. So, we definitely have their attention. And I think they're wondering, like, okay, we gotta figure this out. What are we gonna do here? They're jumping on board. Bacardi is somebody that puts out an annual trend report every year. Bacardi, that's the rum, the factory that's in Puerto Rico. Uh, Top of their list, they don't really give numbers, but top of their list was that the big interest is in low or less. People are drinking less alcohol. Bacardi does have an alcohol-free rum alternative. It's a different name. I don't have it on the top of my tongue. So, they're already in the market a little bit, but I mean, so I've been telling people, how big dry January is going to be for a while because, it's exciting and it's fun. I got off that call and I said, it's so much bigger than I thought. It's
Wow.
so much bigger than I thought. I was like blown away.
Amazing. That is like, I mean, truly, I think that we could like make some predictions for the future, and it's like it seems to go only one way. And what I found actually interesting about the younger people who haven't even tried alcohol yet before, I feel like in our generation, or a decade or two or three or four ago, it feels like the alcohol industry would have been like, well, how do we get them to drink? You know what I mean? Like that would have been the main question to answer. You know what I mean? And there's obviously a lot of manipulative marketing tactics that happened in our generations to do so. And it was kind of like a rite of passage where if you don't do this activity, you are therefore not part of society in some kind of way. And I see what's interesting now about the conversation is, okay, now how do we create a class of beverages just, to meet that? Like instead of forcing someone to go with the trend, it's like, let's now incorporate that into our bottom line. So very smart, obviously, on the alcohol industry's perspective, I think, and hopefully less damaging for all these future generations involved. I'm curious, what other like trends like would you predict or you see happening? Because you're kind of on the front lines of this. You're speaking with all these different partners and beverage companies and kind of the analytics and stuff. What do you think is going to happen in the next like 5 to 10 years around this?
Yeah, I think it is really hard to wrap your head around it. That's what I've been saying to people because so much has happened compared to 2 years ago. Like really, I actually made these little mocktail cards 2 years ago that you could pass out. And I was hoping, yeah, they'd become obsolete. They almost have. They're still handy in a pinch, but I think it's really going to become normal. And in fact, let me quote Courtney Friel, who is a local anchor on KTL 5 News. She did a great job on a dry January segment. And she said, some people, I think I've heard you say something like this before. Some people say that in 10 years, drinking is going to be a bit like smoking, where there's still going to be people that are smoking, but a lot of people are going to just let that go. And it's going to be just as normal as ordering a Coke or a beer or an alcohol-free beer or a zero-proof cocktail when you go out. What do you think?
I mean, I've been saying that for sure, and I think it's like the health studies mixed with the trend of so many people doing it, mixed with so much of the inclusion with the alcohol-free drink movement. But I think the health studies make it really clear, you know what I mean, that this is what it's doing to our body. And I think that wasn't known information 10, 20 years ago, right? And so I think that's becoming more and more prolific where you kind of can't turn a blind eye, and so many more leaders like doctors or really prolific people like Andrew Huberman or Dr. Will Cole are really speaking out against it, Dr. Daniel Ammon and stuff like that, where it's now becoming popular in our culture to know this information. Whereas before it was completely hush hush. You had to look into Google Scholar to find some articles about it. And so I think that, yeah, I do believe it's going to go that way. And that's why I think it's so cool to be part of this now, is that we can look back and I think there will be a bell curve of a change. And I still think that anyone listening today and making these changes today are really at that front end of the bell curve. It's like the first few to go type of a thing to make this change, probably the first person in your social circle and stuff like that. And then there's going to be that big, big, curve of the bell where it's like the majority of people kind of make that change, which, hopefully we'll see in a few years or a decade or whatnot. And then there's going to be those last stragglers, you know what I mean? And just like with smoking, obviously people still smoke, but it's just not mainstream. It's the fringe, it's not the norm anymore. And so it's kind of also too asking yourself, what position on that bell curve do you want to be in? Do you want to be that front leader? Do you want to be that middle majority, or do you want to be the last straggler? And I think that's a point of pride to have right now, is if you're making this change now, you really get to be at the forefront of this trend. You know what I mean? And people will look to you and be like, how did you do it? Or get inspired by you and really be able to use you as a role model. I was just saying earlier that my sister threw a birthday party And a few women were doing dry January, and my sister's like, oh yeah, my sister did that and then never looked back, you know? So it's interesting how she can even use my story now as a way to, you know, inspire these other people. So I think that's really cool for anyone listening today. Like, I really want you to embody that. Like, you are the trend setter, you are the leader, you are really the inspirer right now, because this will wash over, I think, the rest of society. I don't see it going any other way. And also, too, as we just get more technologically advanced, too, like, I can see us, like, why would we continue drinking this, like, crude chemical almost, you know, that like is so bad for the body? Like, scientists will definitely invent something better, or just, you know, create all the other alternatives. So it doesn't seem like that's the only way, you know, to fit in or to socialize or to drink at a restaurant and stuff, which we're already basically seeing for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like again, here in Southern California, we're very health conscious, but it's interesting. I've said before, well, we like our kale and our wine. So we we won't let one or the other go. So it is interesting to see, a lot of us are very health conscious. And what I've always been kind of drawn to that too. Like my fitness level was really important. I got kind of a big charge out of that and tried to eat very healthy. And, I do think that the wine was really, really slowing me down and interfering some with that. Yeah, I think it got kind of buried in all the resveratrol studies, but and so weren't those the great clickbait? Like, yay, red wine is good for you, a glass or a bottle, whatever. But I heard one doctor recently say, like, it's kind of the same as putting like maybe a little injection of resveratrol into your French fries, right? And saying, okay, the French fries are good for you because there's that, little bit of resveratrol in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that. And I think it was confusing. Like, as a consumer, like back when I was trying to make these changes myself, it was confusing, you know, because you had people like Dr. Oz saying it was good for you and stuff like that. So it's like, wait, what is the truth, you know? And I think obviously a lot of that confusion has now been swept aside. We really have the, you know, groundbreaking studies that are showing no amount of alcohol is good for you. I think for me, what I'm most interested in seeing as well is that there's such a lock of culture, especially with wine, when it comes to alcohol, that it's, you know, so old and such a preserved, you know, kind of beautiful tradition in places like Italy and France, and even obviously like Northern California. And I see that the only way to kind of break that, like, I think culture is beautiful. I think traditions are beautiful. And I think making things from the ground out of produce is also really beautiful too. Like, I love vineyards. I think it's a beautiful thing. But I think the way that that will eventually change, if when we continue to know how, you know, bad alcohol is for us, is for those winemakers to be starting to make more of these alcohol-free products, you know? And I think that you can continue the tradition and the culture and all of that just with this new world of more alcohol-free beverages. And it's not like it has to go only that way, but it's just having that option now as a part of inclusion. So I'm loving like the French winemakers that I've seen, like Bloom, make alcohol-free, really good sparkling, you know, rosés and whites and stuff like that. I've always heard from people that I work with that the beer is like the same. You know, alcohol-free beer versus a normal beer is totally the same. It's the wine that needs to catch up. That the alcohol-free wine, you know, market is still an industry that needs to evolve more. It's obviously kind of hard to, you know, make it exactly that way. And I really like Wild AF because they have those drier reds and whites that are really good. But I'm curious, like, what's your perspective on that? Do you see a lot of the growth or industry kind of innovation happening in the alcohol-free wine department, or do you see it more outside of that and more of the mocktails and the beers and stuff?
Yes, I do both. Like I love both. I think some companies like For Bitter or Worse, for example, are coming up with just an alternative. It's not supposed to taste like
Yeah.
wine. It's not supposed to take like a cocktail. Gia is a great example. And how exciting is that, that they are in Sprouts and Target as well as Shirley alcohol-free wine. So yes, I think 2 years ago, wine was bad. Alcohol-free was really bad. That's why we had none at Sober in the City 2 years ago. I mean, we had none. Now we have it all the time. It's getting better, and there's more people coming in. Like we've partnered with Joyous before, has a great kind of, fairly premium brand. A lot of people like to enjoy it over the holidays or a special occasion like Valentine's coming up. And she has a great story. She's been at it a while, Jessica Sealander, and she created it because it wasn't there. She's been alcohol-free, sober, whatever you want to say, for I believe around 18 years, and wanted to still have fun with her friends and have a nice beverage. So she created that. I like dry Sobe, and I feel like every year they get a little bit better. Surely, again, I enjoy that very much. I like that it comes in the cans, the single serve. Sprouts, as you know, is in our area pretty big. I think one of their bigger markets is Southern California, so maybe people across the country don't see that as much. I believe they were one of the first large chains to put up that large alcohol-free segment, maybe 5 months ago, something like that. Every time I go back, Carolina, it is bigger. And my theory is that's why Target is now jumping on board. You're seeing just the start of it, but I've talked to several companies that say they're probably going to be part of that coming up soon. So fingers crossed. And I think they were watching Sprouts and saying, hey, this is working. We better jump on board. So pretty cool trend right there too, that we saw just, I mean, within this year. 1 year ago, I don't think there was anything particularly special in Sprouts or Target. Now they're having end caps. Yeah, recess beverages is getting in quite a few of those places too.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I know with Target, like a few of the ones that I've seen in Southern California built out like a separate beverage department so that they're like the wine and the beers and the spirits were in a different place than the rest of the store. And I was always so disappointed. I was like, there's nothing here for the alcohol-free, connoisseur like that. They really need to step up. And I wonder too, because like at first, since you and I have been around the block in this industry, it was kind of like, oh, and a place had something. It was like, oh my gosh, finally, yes, thank you for doing this. But I wonder when it's really going to hit that point of like, you're now behind in the industry if you're not playing in this game. And, especially any industry that has drinks as a part of it, whether it's cruise lines, for example, airlines, I'm sure other like vacation, like hotels, dining spots, like there's just so many places where it's really going to be kind of like a test of consciousness. For example, like if you're a travel company in 2024 and you're not talking about like sustainability, then you're not very conscious of your industry, of like the trends. So I wonder, and also in that hospitality group, if that's really going to be one of those like markers, like of your consciousness, are you having this inclusive option or not? Because like, there's so many places where they're just not even thinking about it yet, and then their competitors are going to get there first, and then they're going to be the one that's seen as more backward or just not ahead of the times. Do you think that that's going to happen too?
100% it is going to happen. Yes, I do. It's about providing the experience for your customers, right? And we are all their customers, even if you just want to take a break for a day or for a week, it's a nice option. In talking to some of the beverage manufacturers and representatives, there right now it's easier for them to work on the wholesale market. They simply really don't have the manpower, is what I'm being told, to get in all of the local restaurants. So I'm thinking maybe this is the year where we really get into wholesale, and a lot of restaurants, maybe 2025 is where all the restaurants really start to have it. And like you said, if you don't have it, I mean, that you will go, you will make an effort to go to a restaurant that has a nice alcohol-free menu. And if I'm honest, I've gotten a little bit spoiled because because at our events we have really great and specialty alcohol-free beverages. So, kind of a mixed juice drink with a little club soda. I'm happy that it's on the menu, and I appreciate that you're making an effort and trying. And, I think a lot of that is just educating where we're going out to let them know, yeah, this is a nice start, but we would like maybe an alcohol-free wine or something a little more creative as well
Yeah.
on the menu.
Awesome. Well, predictions of Susie for 2025 and beyond. Hope the world catches up. Susie, tell us a little bit more about what's in store for Zero Proof Experiences this year. I know you had the Tampa event. Tell us a little bit more about that. What else is going on?
Yeah, we're super excited to connect in Tampa. We have just about 100 women, a handful of men coming too. And One thing that I just want to mention, most people that attend a Sober in the City, like a whole weekend event, sign up all by themselves. So maybe they talked to somebody or sent a message to somebody on Instagram or Facebook, but they're coming all by themselves for the first time. So we try to curate that. So, there's some kind of entry level. We're playing pickleball. We try to err on the side of party, not conference. We have kind of a celebratory dinner, and there's things that you can choose to participate in, like a breakout session about how to be confident in an alcohol-centric society, which still is there. We're we're going to Bali in in June, and we're working on, looks like Seattle is almost confirmed this September. So yeah, and one thing that we just want to add to this next year, which we're actually starting tomorrow, is we understand that not everybody is in a season of life where they can travel for an entire weekend. Maybe someday, or maybe it's just right now. And so we've been partnering with some of the friends that we've met along the way, and we want to just do kind of low lift, low key meetups. So for example, like this week, we're going to have at the same local time, we're going to do a meetup here in Long Beach, and we'll do one in Tampa at the same time. And assuming that goes okay, we're we're making more connections already to do maybe a couple in March, and just have a goal of making that more of a connection. We're also offering a membership where it's more of like a social membership where you can just pop in. We have connection calls twice a week on Monday morning and Thursday afternoon, where we're just having guests to share about what's going on in the alcohol-free arena and goal setting, just, a kind of a variety of topics, but forward facing, and really excited about 2024, and so fun to connect with your energy here, Carolina.
Yeah. Well, Susie, that's so exciting. I'm so glad that this is like what you're providing. I think Sandsbar is going kind of in a similar direction where they would, put events across the country and then really recognize that the more people we have involved, the more sustainable it is, more community like organization, whether it's more meetups all around and stuff like that. And, if you find yourself, I would just want to say this, if you find yourself in a city where there's just nothing, right? You've never seen an event or anything like that, why not be that person? There is a great tool called meetup.com where you could put up an event together and make it super casual, like a coffee date or something, and have a few people, find it on the internet and stuff like that. But that's how these things start, and that's how community starts. And that's how I was able to meet some dear friends in the alcohol-free space 5 years ago, was through that kind of forum. So, look around too. Look and see if you have any events. We'll be listing Susie's in the show notes. And keep an eye on Susie because they'll be traveling, I guess, all around the US for years to come. So do keep an eye out to see if they come to a city near you. And it was just such a delight to talk to you, Susie, today, especially to hear more about those trends. I sometimes kind of put my head down and just am focused on my own work, that I don't sometimes see the cool things that are happening around, in this movement. But I think it's amazing to know that we really are on the right track. Like this really is something that's going to just keep shifting in society. And it really is kind of like a lucky club that you get to be into now that, you were kind of first. So wear that badge proudly, everybody.
Yes, we're at the front of the train.
Yeah.
And we kind of packaged, if you are interested in seeing like all the details and the exact statistics, we sort of package it all in a PDF, and you can download it from our link in bio website. So
Awesome. And can you just name that website now? And then my editor will be sure to put in the show notes.
ZeroProofExperiences.com.
Perfect. We'll have that in the show notes for you listeners. All right, Susie, thank you so much for being on the show today. And thank you so much for educating all of us on these really cool statistics and trends.
Thanks a lot, Carolina. It was so fun to connect with you.